Good morning, hockey fans. This is Stephen Heisler with HeisHockey.com, the Victorious Hockey Company, and the Junior Hockey Discussion Group on Facebook. You are watching the Junior Hockey Morning Show. We are on the World Sports Broadcasting Network, WSBN.TV, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Today is Friday, August 20, 2025. Nice morning, probably our last Friday morning of somewhat calm until, I don't know, May. We'll be pretty much smoking busy from here on out. I was talking to Tommy this morning. Had to watch a couple of games from this week. Had to sign up for the new North American Hockey League TV thing, and we are off to the races. We are trying to bring in a guest this morning, and if he pops in, let me know, because he's kind of quiet sometimes. Not sure what's happening with him. But today's topic, the 5, it's Friday, things every new NAHL coach needs to know. There are a pile of new coaches this year in the North American Hockey League. There are some of those coaches have a bit of experience within the league as an assistant, and others are coming in with not a clue. And it's good to know, for all these guys to know, what it takes to be successful in the league. Some things you have to really understand, some things that you have to just accept, and that's all there is to it. While some of these guys have experience, there are going to be others that are going in simply blind about what it takes to be successful in the league. Today's 5 comes from within the league itself, from one of the veteran coaches, and should be something every new coach takes to heart. You got any messages from our guest, Tommy?
He can't come through.
You can't get through? Was he broken?
Yes.
Our guest. I asked Tommy to start this about 15 minutes before the show and get everybody connected, but somebody was late because they were getting their coffee. Not too sure who that person is. All right, the first one. Number 1, everyone is good. All teams have good players and good coaches. It's hard to win consistently. Here's what we know about the North American Hockey League and probably every Junior A league on the continent. It's not all the players are going to come in and, for the most part, be on a relatively equal footing. Where things start falling off the track is when there are issues off the ice that really determine what's happening on the ice. When things aren't going well, when there's mismanagement, when there's cutting corners, when the players are coming out of the comfort zone, or are not really focused on what's going on, that's when the losses come. So the coaches that are able to manage, here we go. Mr. Ballard.
Hey, hi, Tommy. Sorry, guys. I rebooted because I did a dump, and for whatever reason my Chrome wasn't activated.
You just told the whole world that you took a dump.
Yeah, well, it is what it is.
He's in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, a few hours behind us. So, Eric, we're talking about the 5 things that new North American hockey coaches have to take to heart right off the bat. And the first one is everyone is good. Every player is good. Every coach is good. And it's hard to win consistently. And you were in the North American Hockey League for a number of years and been around the game for a long time. I can see the point where all teams kind of come in equal, but when do things start changing? When do teams start separating? What does it take?
That's a great question, and we don't have to go too deep because I know you got a time limit. But when my first year in the North American League as a head coach, we went pretty deep into recruiting out of Minnesota high school kids, where I'm from. And those players were all at their respective levels, some of the best captains, top end players of every one of their high school programs that had no North American Hockey League experience. And that first season, we had a number of Division One, Division Three players on that roster. But I think year one, I think we won 20 games. The league, people overlook how good the North American Hockey League level of skill and talent really is. And I think the one thing that coaches need to go in as a new coach, just because a player comes out of a respective program, whether it's AAA, high school, whatever, prep, you have to give the props to the North American Hockey League players and their experience as 20 and 19 and 20-year-olds. It's a big jump. It really is. There's a fine line between good and really good.
Number two is enjoy the wins. You got 20 wins in that first year, Eric, and I think all these new coaches, some are going into established programs, some are starting brand new programs. Any W's that you can get are valuable, aren't they?
No question, because with the wins, it becomes confidence. Confidence, exudes into more success. And if you start to find yourself in a position where it's 1 win and 3 losses and, starts to bounce back and forth like that, enjoy the wins, savor the wins, because, if you take a look back in history, the Tony Curtalis, the Scott Langers, a lot of the good coaches in the past and some of the new coaches, you get to 35, 40 wins, Garrett Roth and Austin Bruins and Steve Howard. Those are, I want to say they're unicorns, but they're pretty close. You don't find those 40-plus win seasons much anymore, and those coaches have figured it out.
Number 3 is, and this is very important, remember these are kids, and coaches have to be patient. The patient factor is very important. If you start to get excited after 5 games and you don't like what's happening on the ice and you start dumping kids, that's going to pay off very badly for you later on.
By experience, Steve, year 1, year 2 in the North American League, I made more trades, more ad drops than I care to, recall, thinking that picking up a player that has more experience, grabbing a player that has a different skill set. Years later, I can say that we as an organization, myself as the GM, we made mistakes on players. We should have hung on to them. We should have been a little more patient. There's no question. It's a great point you bring up, because if you're doing your job correctly and you're recruiting the right players for the right reasons, you see an intangible in there that you can eventually extract. So spend some time getting to know your athletes, spend some time getting to know their skill sets, and help guide them and lead them in the right direction, because you signed them, you tendered them, you drafted them for a reason.
Number 4 is there's a lot of outside noise. You have to block it out. You know what? That is exactly the case. And I think sometimes I'm the noise, right? Sometimes, but you have noise from parents, noise from sponsors, noise from college coaches, other coaches, ownership, your own staff. And I think if coaches stick to what got them there and stick to what helped them develop players before they got to the North American Hockey League, and not forget, we're here to make these players better, not take what they have and make wins. You have to develop these kids.
There's no question. And it starts at the very top, right? It does. It stops, for the North American Hockey, a lot of that is college, right? So you've got the portal now. You've got the NCAA portal that ultimately affects the players, that they're not getting the amount of ice time they deserve, they need, they want. And the noise comes in between parents, no offense, advisors, old coaches, mentors. Maybe the grass is greener on the other side. And I truly believe that not only as a player, unless you're forced into a situation where you've been drafted and you don't want to report to a certain program, take that journey, take that opportunity to learn something from the game, from that coaching staff, even if it's something you don't want. It's a big learning curve. There's no question. I think our game, there is a ton of noise. There is no question there's a ton of noise, because you've got USA Hockey sanctioned programs, you've got non-USA Hockey sanctioned programs, you've got Hockey Canada, you've got non-Hockey Canada. These athletes have options. They have a ton of options. And, not that it's a bad situation. It's just do your homework. That's advice I always give the people I work with. Do your homework, because you're going to make a decision that maybe might not check every box in the bucket. But do your homework because there is a lot of noise. I would agree with you, Heist.
Number 5, and I like this a lot, it's the best job in the world. The worst days are still an enjoyable part of the process. When you're part of the developmental ladder and you realize your role in that ladder and you relish in that role and you accept it, and you work with the other coaches, you don't, you can't be a donkey on the bench. Be a good example for these young men. Let's face it, these kids, maybe 1 out of 20 might get a real shot at professional hockey down the line somewhere. That's about the average. So the best impression a young coach can make is what kind of man you are and what kind of man that you can help turn these boys into. Darcy Hogan was real big on this is, you come in as boys, you go out as gentlemen. And I love that analogy. I think that's the most important job of any hockey coach, and especially one in the North American Hockey League, Eric.
I think teaching life lessons and life skills is part of our game, right? There's no question. I think there's a balance though too. Being a former North American coach, you have to win. You have to put kids in college. You have to get kids in the NHL Central Scouting list. Now, it's not something part of someone's contract, but it hangs in the balance. That's how you keep your job. There's no question. Ownership is ownership. And sometimes you don't see eye to eye. But at the end of the day, I think, from my experience, you win, you stay in. And how do you achieve those wins? And I think the quicker you can achieve those wins by getting to know your athletes and getting to know their pros and their cons and where they fit, those types of things, is just equally important. But there is a balance because every young coach wants to stay in the game. Every old coach wants to stay in the game. I think the interesting part is we used to talk about it pretty consistently. You have a better chance of becoming a mayor of a town. You have a better chance of becoming even a governor of a state than you do as being a North American Hockey League coach. At that time, I think there was 24 teams in the league. And I was extremely honored to be one of 24. So some of these head coaches in that league, cherish it, take full advantage of it because I've been out for, I don't know, Stephen, how long have I been out? Over a decade now?
Yeah.
There's not a day that goes by that I wouldn't love to get a crack at getting back in.
Final thought, Eric. What can you tell a young coach coming in or even an older guy who's starting his first year in the league? What's the one thing that will be the biggest surprise for them when they hit the showcase in Blaine?
Oh, well, that's a good question. The amount of eyes on all your athletes is very, that the North American Hockey League office does a great job with that showcase. NHL teams, Division I, Division III, Major, Junior, you name it. There is a ton of eyes on your athletes. Be prepared for that showcase. Not about the wins and losses. Be prepared because those impressions for your players will last the entire season because a lot of these NCAA college coaches can't get back all the time. So that first showcase weekend, have your kids fully mentally, physically, and emotionally prepared for one heck of a week of hockey.
Excellent, Eric. I appreciate it. Last thing, coaches, there are no secrets in the North American Hockey League. Don't create them in your locker room. Don't create them in your environment. That's it for today, folks. Enjoy your morning coffee. Cheers.